Stories change us, inspire us, encourage us, and keep us going. Green Chair Conversations is the place where story and change meet through authentic conversation as we learn and grow from a diversity of voices. Welcome to Green Chair Conversations. Hello, hello. Today we sit down with Debbie Coy Wheeler, the Regional Director for the Outpatient Program of Bradford Health Services in Germantown, Tennessee. Today, Debbie educates us to the nuances and mechanics of addiction and recovery, as well as shares her own unique recovery journey. Debbie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for asking me, Jessica. I appreciate it.
Yes, this is just such an honor. You've been here at Hope for so many years
20
now.
20 years plus. Yeah.
And you are just a huge piece in our recovery ministry and what we're doing here. So thank you for that. This is an honor on my part. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's always an honor to get asked to do something in the recovery community or to help educate families and help people find hope and help.
Yes. And you have tons of experience, and I really want to lean into some of the education pieces.
Sure.
Like education pieces on addiction and recovery. We have a seminar we do usually twice a year.
Yes.
Pre-COVID, right?
Pre-COVID.
The Addicted Brain series, correct?
Yes.
Yes. And that is through Bradford Health Center?
It is through Bradford Health Services, Bradford Health Services.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's Tim Hilton, and he comes and he talks about the addicted brain, and he shares about his personal recovery journey, as well as some of the dynamics and neuropathways and how addiction impacts the brain.
Yes.
It's really incredible. We typically do that in March every year.
Yeah.
And then September is Recovery Month. So we like to do, the last couple of years, we've done the healed brain, or what happens when you remain abstinent from drugs or alcohol. You work the steps, you have a sponsor, a home group, and you are service and help others. And it's really cool to see how the brain heals through the recovery process.
Well, I want us to lean into some of that as well. We'll talk about it. But first, I would love for us just to start with your recovery journey. I loved when we were talking.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but feel like your story is one I don't hear a lot of.
Right.
It's very unique. So I would love for you to just kind of walk us through your story.
So I'll try to keep it kind of compact.
Yes.
I probably started drinking in college, and I didn't know, but I was drinking alcoholically the first time I drank. I drank because I liked the effect produced by alcohol. A normal drinker gets that woo-woo, uncomfortable feeling, like they're going out of control, and they think, I don't want any more of that. Well, for me as an alcoholic, I think, oh my gosh, I love that feeling. I've got to chase this. How can I have more? And it just became a way of life, and drinking is accepted and it's normal in college. And probably from the jump, I started drinking alcoholically. And what that means is when I had one, I didn't know how many I was going to have. I didn't typically stop until I was in a brownout or a blackout where I remember little or none of the night before, but people would tell me pieces of it, and sometimes flashes would come back. But I thought everybody drank like that. So I didn't know that I was different. And I had a path of that for about 20 years. I ended up doing some different recreational drugs in my 20s. I was able to put those down, and then I became a pharmaceutical rep. And when I was able to put those down, there were lots of doctors prescribing lots of substances. So I switched from the recreational drugs to the prescription drugs. And one thing I will say is recreational, street drug, prescription drug, dead is dead, overdose is overdose. And I didn't know that. When I was mixing, it says on the prescription bottle, do not mix with alcohol, may cause dizziness, may cause sleepiness. Well, that was what I was looking for. So I started adding different medications to the wine or the vodka. And I also thought, I drank for about 20 years. I got sober when I was 38. And I did not think that I could be an alcoholic because I was still, had a job, a really good job. I was doing well. I could shine it up. And the wine I was drinking out of my Waterford Crystal, or I was doing martinis, and alcoholics don't drink like that. I thought alcoholics were older men under a bridge with a paper bag, homeless, helpless. I didn't know that people like me could be alcoholic or have a problem with alcohol and or drugs.
That's interesting. And then ultimately, tell me a little bit about when you became aware that you even had a problem.
Oh gosh. So when I became aware of the problem, I really thought it was depression and anxiety. Yeah. And I just thought, man, if I could just get the right medication, I would be okay. I did not realize that all the medications I was taking, like the longer I was away from Xanax, the more anxiety I had. The more anxiety I had, the more Xanax I needed. My sleep was off, so I was taking sleeping medications, Ambien, Sonata, just different prescription meds to help me sleep, and I was mixing these, and I was drinking on top of that. It got to a point where I was taking stuff in the morning. I had doctors that would write diet pills for me. You know, I was about 20 pounds less than I am now, but they were still writing diet pills. I was swapping Adderall and different ADHD meds with friends, and finally, I got so suicidal, I went to see a psychiatrist, and when I did, I thought he was going to get my meds right and I'd be fine, and he wanted me to go into treatment. So I went to treatment. One thing I want to say is I went to treatment for depression and anxiety.
Yes.
By the grace of God, and I truly mean that, I came out with alcohol and drug addiction. And the reason I say that, Jessica, is because if it had been anxiety and depression, I would still be medicating all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that people don't need medication in or out of recovery for that. But if I had leaned in just to that and not dealt with the alcohol and the prescription pill or whatever kind of drug abuse, all those meds for depression and anxiety wouldn't work. So I had to get sober first. And then, so I'm in treatment for depression and anxiety. I'm not a therapist yet at the time. I ended up going back to get my license for, start over.
You're good. No, you're good.
So when I was in treatment, I was not a therapist. I am a therapist today.
Yeah.
But when I was in there, I kept thinking, trying to lead the groups, like, why are these people here? You know, you're depressed, go exercise. I didn't really get depression. I thought I could push through. You know, you have anxiety, you know, go do something, have a community, that'll make the anxiety better. And I do believe that that does make it better today. But if I had not stopped alcohol and drugs, none of that would have mattered. So eventually, when I was in treatment for depression and anxiety, they moved me into another group. And when I went to the other group, they had me check a list of everything I had done. And there was basically everything on the list I had tried at one time.
Wow. So you just have this list and they say, okay, we're going to walk through what meds you're on, and you've done or tried all of them.
Yeah, and some were over the counter, you know, like Benadryl. I used Benadryl to sleep. Well, what I know today is I'm supposed to take medications for what they are prescribed for or used for. So that's for an allergy, you know, if I get a bee sting or I have an allergic reaction, not to help me sleep. So, but when I went in that other group, and it was a substance abuse group, oh my gosh, I felt freedom. Just immediately I felt like those were my people. And none of us had any long-term sobriety. But it's just a thing that in recovery we talk about. It's the language of the heart. And it's when one alcoholic or drug addict talks to another, something just happens, and it's synergistically, and it's just amazing. And you know, it had been suggested to me that I try a 12-step meeting. When I lived in Jackson, Tennessee, I went to a 12-step meeting, but I was a pharmaceutical rep. And so back in the day, we had to wear our suits and high heels and pantyhose and everything. And the meeting I went to had a bunch of men like in overalls and tank tops and cigars. And I thought, I'm not like this. You know, so fast forward, it was 2 or 3 years later before I made it back to a 12-step meeting. But it was through treatment that I ended up grabbing another person in the group, and we started going to meetings together. I think I'm the only one out of the whole group that kind of stuck, because they say only 10% of people that seek treatment will stay in there. And that's it, stay in recovery, stay in the recovery process. But when I heard that, I thought, I'm going to be that one. I'm going to be that one. I want this. When I went to the meetings, I felt people laughing, and they could look each other in the eye, and I just thought, this feels like that feeling that I searched for and that I found in alcohol. But here's the feeling without alcohol. So that was pretty cool.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
And you know, one of the things when you and I were talking, you said something about getting the right people to the right meeting, and how important that is. And that's literally your story.
Yes. And you know, what's so interesting, really of late, I've had a lot of people that have relapsed that have come back into my life, and they're saying they don't like meetings, they don't like this, and they don't like a sponsor. Well, it's really interesting when I recommend different meetings that they try, and they find people like themselves. And it makes all the difference. So I can go to any meeting today and get what I need. But if somebody is already trying to think they may not need recovery or looking for ways out, I just think it's vital to get them in a meeting where they can find people that they can relate and identify with. And I love to get to do that. When I first got sober, I went to a lot of different meetings throughout the community. I don't go to as many today, but I have connections in all different meetings in all different areas of our city and our community. So
that's really good.
If it's a Germantown housewife, I know where to plug her in. If it's a businessman or a doctor or an attorney, a business owner, if it's a 20-year-old kid, they're just different places that they're going to feel more comfortable and hopefully stick and stay.
That's so interesting. And I love, like, when you and I were talking, like, I just love the uniqueness of your story of just how, like, you literally went because you thought it was anxiety or depression. And then you end up kind of being exposed to this reality that you weren't even aware of.
Yes.
And that's so interesting.
And so that's something else, Jessica. Like, I was a pharmaceutical rep, and at one point I called on psychiatrists and neurologists, and I have a college degree, I have a master's degree now, and I thought, how could I not know I was an alcoholic? So some of the things that I heard early on is, if you drink because you like the effect produced by alcohol. Well, yeah, that's why I drank. I have an allergy to alcohol. So when I put the first drink in my body, what happens is it breaks into a toxin, and it's called diacetyl something, 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 a long word. And that gives me that ease and comfort, that peace, that that I get from alcohol, that other people are like, ooh, I'm starting to feel a little woozy. I don't want any more. So I do have an allergy to alcohol. And the first I put in my body, that sets up the phenomenon of craving. And once that's set up, man, I don't know if I'm going to have 1 or 10 or drink for 3 days or 10 years, So I know, and I did not know that before I found 12-step rooms. I'll say that. It's the first drink that gets me every time. For an alcoholic, there is no managing. And if you are struggling and trying to manage your drinking, you might have a problem with alcohol. I didn't know that either. I thought I had friends that could go 30 days without drinking. I would jump on that bandwagon. I could not do it. I was drinking that day or the next day, and I thought, what's wrong with me? Because I have a lot of willpower in other areas. Why can't I stop? And it's not until I found the recovery rooms that I thought, oh, it's the first one that gets me every time. It's not about managing. It's about abstinence. And on top of abstinence, I have to plug something into all those days and times and the thinking I put into drinking. And that's like, I love recovery meetings. I love them. I see miracles in them all the time. I see people get reconnected. I see families restored. I see people, the light come on. They have hope again. It's just such a beautiful way of life. But I also understand there's a lot of fear, a whole lot of fear for people, about going to a meeting or finding the right meeting. I love helping our people in our community find those things. I love getting to meet people at meetings and introduce them to the first 12-step meeting and help them get plugged in. It's like, I can't imagine not having this way of life today. It's really such a gift.
That's really neat.
Yeah.
And so you kind of talked a little bit about how you were just completely unaware. You didn't realize you had, you didn't realize you had any sort of issue or problem or struggle with it.
Right.
And so let me lean into that a little bit for some people listening. Like, what are warning signs? What are red flags that, hey, either you or somebody you know may be actually struggling with an addiction?
So first of all, I'd like to say it is not a moral issue. It is not a moral issue at all.
Yes, thank you for saying that.
Right over here, when we first start drinking and or using other substances, maybe we could stop, and maybe it is a choice. But most of us, by the time we get over here, we are so dependent on it and we can't stop. An alcoholic can't just stop drinking. They can have seizures, they can die. Opiate addicts can't just stop taking the opiates or narcotics because they can dehydrate with all the side effects that happen from withdrawal. You got to have help. There's detox. There's a lot of things in place that are available to people in our community with or without insurance. I've got a lot of connections. There are lots of people in the community that have a lot of connections. So you don't try to do this on your own.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is it's a we program. So all the times before when I tried to stop using and drinking on my own, I could not do it. It's simple. I'll say it's simple, not easy once I have the rooms. But I can do it one day at a time. And I don't have to think I'm never going to have another drink. I'm going to have a drink today. Today.
Yeah.
And so brownouts, blackouts, drinking more than you intend to. Like how many nights did I say I'm going to go out and have 2 drinks? And I was a bottle and a half into a wine, or I have 2 martinis and then I have 6 shots and then I go home and drink wine. So if you're counting your drinking, if you're drinking when you don't want to drink, if you're doing things that you don't want to do when you're drinking, blacking out, browning out, you've got family asking you to stop, you might have a problem.
And can you clarify browning out? I know blackout, but I don't know about browning out.
A blackout is when you don't remember anything. A brownout's when you remember parts of the night.
Okay.
Yeah. You remember, oh yeah, when somebody reminds you of something, oh yeah, and it's usually not good. Yeah, it's usually not good.
That's really helpful. So tell us a little bit about, let's kind of change gears a little bit and go to the mechanics. Let's go to a little bit of what is happening in addiction. And there's 2 layers, the addiction layer and then the recovery layer. We were just kind of talking about that.
Yes.
So let's start with addiction. Like what's happening with the brain? What's happening with the body?
So what happens and this is kind of to summarize Tim Hilton's story, is we have a lot of neuropathways in the brain that regulate our mood, how we feel, and how the body works. And we all have issues with pain, okay? So it could be an emotional pain, a mental pain, a physical pain, a relationship pain, trauma. And for an alcoholic or a drug addict, when you have that pain, I wish I had a board here to draw with, and you find alcohol or drugs, man, that relieves that pain. It relieves it. But as you look at the triangle that goes down, you've got the relief here, but the pain eventually comes back. And when it comes back, you come back over here and you eventually need more and more of the substance. The relief is shorter and less, but the pain continues to grow. I don't know if I did a good job of describing that.
No, it's basically countering each other. So you need more alcohol to cover the pain, but then the pain keeps going. So you need more and more and more alcohol.
Yes.
That's a gross simplification of it.
That's perfect, though. And I love to draw that out for families and show them that, we use it because it works. And it works. It works really well until it stops. And so different people are addicted to different things. Like I've taken opiates in the past. They make me nauseous, they make me itchy, but some people it energizes. So that would tell me if you're getting energy when you take opiates, you have an allergy, and that's not a good thing, and you need to be really careful. That's not to say if you break your arm you can't have pain meds, or if you have surgery you can't have pain meds, but you need to be careful and maybe have somebody help watch. For me, being an alcoholic, there are certain neuropathways that alcohol regulated for me. But because I've been away from that for a significant amount of time now, I could very easily maybe have to take opiates for a surgery and that become an addiction. So often I hear, pills weren't my deal, or alcohol was, especially with opiate addicts, alcohol wasn't my deal. They think they can drink. Eventually the drinking, because we drink because we like the effect it produces.
Yeah.
And so it's eventually going to take you back to your drug of choice, or into a different, a different addiction. I want to say that it's very important if you're in recovery for the most part to remain abstinent. And again, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not talking about like antidepressants and medicines that are not mood altering, because a lot of people need those things for part of their recovery or all of their recovery. But it's very important for us to be able to watch what we're putting in our body and know that it could set up the phenomenon of craving. So if I had one drink today, even in double-digit sobriety years, that would set up the phenomenon of craving for me. And I don't know how many I would have or when I would stop.
Yeah.
So it's much easier if you find sobriety and recovery to stay here.
Yeah.
And I've heard often that it's a gift. The first time you get sober, it's a gift. It's easy. That was my experience. Over relapses, you have to work harder and harder. I've kind of seen that. That's not been my personal experience, but I know you can do it. Everybody can do recovery if they have the capacity to be honest, open-minded, and willing. Yeah. Can't do it alone. Yeah. I read a book not long ago by Johann Hari called Lost Connections, and it's about depression and anxiety. And maybe the meds help with that a little bit, but really what cures that and heals that is community. And I think we do heal in community, and I think that's why the 12-step groups work. We need each other, I think in all the recovery programs it starts with we, and we have to do this together, not alone. I think about our addiction. Our addiction wants us isolated and talking to us, saying, you can do it, you just had bad luck, try it again, it'll be different this time. And if I'm not talking about that with somebody, let me be clear. I still have thoughts, man, I'd like to take some prescription meds to help with my anxiety. But I call my sponsor or a trusted friend and talk about that.
Yeah.
And when I do that, it cuts the power in half. But if I leave it up here, I'm going to be thinking, which doctor can I go to? How can I get some? Could I order some off the internet now? So it really is a we program, and I have to have my people, my tribe.
That's really good. Just even that self-talk. I love that you're touching on that, because we're talking addiction, we're talking recovery, but I think that even crosses over to all aspects of life. Because we let things live in our heads, whatever it is. If we let them live in our minds, they can just corrupt whatever is going to happen in our life. And I just love what you're saying is you got to get that out. You got to get that out. You got to get that out. And having that conversation with somebody I love that you said cuts it in half.
Yeah.
I think it loses power when you expose something like that.
Right.
And I think that particularly, we're church community, faith communities. There is a stigma associated with, if I tell someone I am struggling, questioning, doubting, fearing, whatever it is, tempted by.
That's right.
We feel like, I'm going to be judged. No, but I can't let anybody know, so we keep it in, and then that's kind of the birthing place of anything bad that's going to happen.
I'm so glad you touched on that, because one of the things I talk to patients and families about is our secrets keep us sick. And so that's where our addiction really wants us isolated, alone, in our own thoughts, not including anybody. And in recovery, we bring things out into the light.
Yes.
And that's where God can work on it.
Yes.
When we can be vulnerable and put it out there to get help. And so I'm a huge believer that we heal in community. And there's a book by Johann Hari that talks about anxiety and depression. And he had been on meds for that for a long time. But after his research and looking at all of his history, where he healed with depression and anxiety is when he got in community.
Wow.
And it's so cool, because it's people from all different backgrounds of life, all different expertises, and just coming together for one cause. And that's really what we do in recovery.
Yeah.
We say from jail to Yale.
Yeah.
So it really is.
Wow.
It's just amazing how we need each other. And our community teaches us we have to be self-sufficient, can't depend on anybody. Oh, that's so far from the truth. Yeah. We're not made to be independent. We are made to be interdependent. And that's one of the gifts of recovery for me.
That's wow. And our secrets keep us sick. That is a powerful phrase.
When I first heard that, I thought, wow. And because of the rooms of recovery, I have been able to share some of the really things that I think I can't tell anybody this, but I tell my sponsor or I tell a trusted friend, and they go, oh, me too. And it's like, what? I thought I was, a bad person or a bad Christian, a bad recovered person, but we're human.
Yeah. So it's so communal. That's kind of this common thread, I think, that is getting interwoven in between all of it, is just this community aspect, this community need, which kind of leads me to just even wanting to lean into these two arms. So for those listening here, right, somebody could be listening thinking, okay, I think I might be struggling with this, or I think I have a problem.
Right.
And then somebody could be listening thinking, I know somebody who has a problem or is struggling with this. It's one or the two. We all know somebody or we are the person. I think it's just so prevalent right now. I mean, we don't even need to talk about a pandemic. I mean, being isolated and amplified. I mean, we're seeing it. I know you're seeing it. We were just talking about that. So talk to me about, what would you say to both of these arms, if you will? What would you say to the person who's struggling? What would you say to the person who knows someone who is?
So I would say for both, there's hope and help and healing and recovery. Just reach out. Just reach out. I was talking to someone the other day. If you're going to your doctor, talk to your doctor. They can help guide you into a recovery program. Call Hope. Call Bradford. Call a treatment center. Call a mental health provider. Reach out to somebody you know in recovery. Everybody knows somebody who's an alcoholic and or a drug addict. But guess what? You probably know somebody who's in recovery, who doesn't drink and or drug. Some people are, I'll say, there aren't a lot of people that stop using alcohol and drugs that don't do 12-step programs that I find have a lot of happy, joyous, and freeness in their life. I can't imagine doing recovery without community. So I would say call somebody, call and ask for help. Just call and get some information. I'm happy to meet somebody at a meeting. I love getting to do that. I don't know if you wanted me to say this, but I do interventions in the community.
I do.
I absolutely work with families. At Bradford, we have a program where I can plug you in. It's all virtual right now, but I can plug you into our family program, and you can do it from your home. It's 2 days. It's a couple of hours in the morning, break, a couple of hours in the afternoon, 2 days in a row. You'll get to see Tim Hilton. You'll get to talk about or get educated about the difference in helping and enabling a patient. It's so educational. And again, I want to be very clear, it's not a moral issue. Over here, it's a choice. By the time you get here, it is not a choice for most of us. But
thank you for clarifying that. I mean, I know we said it, but it's just such a, like, I think there is a stigma of, I don't know that I can admit this, or it's a moral issue, or, so I think that's an important piece too.
And if you're afraid to call in the auspice of you're calling for somebody else, you know? Just call and just start asking questions and inquiring. There are a lot of 12-step meetings throughout our community. We're really blessed here. Some start at 7 in the morning, some end at 10 at night. Right now in the pandemic, which is really hard for all of us people in recovery, one of the gifts is there are a lot of Zoom meetings. So I've had clients and patients that are Zooming on 12-step meetings in Bangkok at 11 o'clock at night, you know, or in London at 3 in the morning, or, you know, at 6 in the morning and wherever. So go to a meeting. You can go online. When you go to a meeting, you do not have to introduce yourself. Nobody's going to ask for a resume. They don't want to know your last name. Just, you know, they're going to welcome you. They're glad you're there, and they hope that you find hope and some help there. At Bradford, we also have a concerned person group that meets on Tuesday, every Tuesday. Right now it's on Zoom. Mary Elizabeth Jones runs it. It is every Tuesday, 5:30 to 6:30, but there are two others that we offer. One is kind of led out of the Mobile office, and another one out of the Little Rock, Arkansas office. So, you know, we can meet your needs there. I think there's some Al-Anon meetings on Zoom too. If you need help, call me. You can call the office, and I'm happy to help with that.
That's good. Thank you so much. I mean, I feel like this has just been such a rich conversation, because part of it is, I loved when I reached out to you, your first comment was, I love breaking down the stigma, right?
Yes, I do.
Because that's such an important piece of this, is to normalize having this conversation, normalize somebody you know, somebody you love may be having a problem that's struggling. Let's normalize this a little bit better and make it so that we can get help, because we gotta get those thoughts out. We gotta get that stuff that's going on in our head out.
And we all have it. All of us, even the healthiest of us. You know, we have that little voice back there. You know, I've worked with women with eating disorders, and it's constant with them. And that's when I first learned about the voice. You know, but it is. It's constantly talking. You're not good enough. You can have another drink. Don't take that bite of food. You know, you're too crazy to be whatever. And that's just not the case. We just have to find our tribe. We have to find our place.
I like that. Find your tribe. That's good. That's a perfect ending point too, is finding your tribe, because that is the common theme through this whole thing is people, community, community, have this kind of conversation because we're all in this boat together.
Well, and one of the things I would say I want to end with is the freedom that I have to talk about all this stuff with my sponsor or a select group of friends that I never had before I found recovery is so freeing.
Wow.
There's really not judgment.
Yeah.
You know, we're all in this together, and one thing I've found out, we've all done the same things in different sizes, shapes, forms, cultures, colors, ages. It's all the same. We're human.
Okay, so you mentioned this story.
Yes, so I wanted to touch on a patient we had a couple of weeks ago in intensive outpatient program. He had gone to residential, he came out, came home, found some fentanyl. He didn't have the tools not to use it. And I'm sure his brain's saying, one more time, I can use one more time. What he didn't know is he set up the phenomenon of craving when he did that. And so he was not able to stay sober in intensive outpatient. We were able to confront him and talk to him and recommend that he go back to residential. He was unwilling to do that, but I was able to get him to go to detox. And I remember just saying, we will look forward to seeing you when you finish. And he said, you'll take me back? Broke my heart, because yes, we'll take you back. I just want you to be safe when you're in our program. You know, not everybody gets it the first try, but we want to get you safe and detoxed again so you can come back. And he was so grateful for that. So even if you stumble, it doesn't mean you're a bad person. You just need some more tools. Let us help you.
And it's that shame piece.
Oh, shame and guilt, sure. And the only thing alcoholic and drug addicts that know relieve that is more of the substance they were using. And it works well, and it works fast.
That's good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for asking me. Absolutely. Yeah,
thank you,
how cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that is a wrap for today's conversation with Debbie Coy Wheeler. We so appreciate you for joining us today. Please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like today's video, as well as the Green Chair Conversations podcast and our GCC Instagram account. We love you guys and am so excited for who we have coming up next week. I'll see you then.